This week on X-Trex, what's a theme? What's a schedule? What's a girl?
It's the season 2 wrap-up episode. Finally!
Welcome to X-Trex, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek The Original Series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings. But not this episode, because...
Our theme this week is, it's season 2. It's the wrap-up.
Welcome to the wrap-up episode of season 2 of X-Trex. Externally, this season has been pretty even keel on schedule as far as releases go and as far as content. However, life-wise around this season...
What a circus!
Behind the scene, what a circus. And we are so happy to be wrapping up this season for several reasons. One, because it was a great season full of wonderful episodes, both of these shows. And 2, because it was just a fucking turbulent time in all of our lives.
Oh my god.
Yeah, listeners of any/all NYD production podcasts will have noticed that we went from being very regimented and good at our schedules and to, whoops, where did all the podcasts go? But we're getting back on track. And with it, we're going to wrap this one up real nice with a bow. And then we'll be back in a month and a half
Yeah,
with the whole new season. So, season 2, how's everybody feeling? Overall thoughts. We normally do overall thoughts at the bottom, but let's do it on the top. Mix it up. It's a topsy-turvy world.
Well, here, let me help. Where are you both on these shows now after 2 seasons of this podcast? What are your opinions? Are you still super into them? Has that waxed or waned in any way?
I love Star Trek. I'm obsessed now.
So obsessed that
I have a Star Trek sort of tattoo now. It's also a Plan 9 tattoo, but it's also a Star Trek tattoo. Anyone who looks at it will think it's just a Star Trek tattoo. Yeah, I have a giant red shirt pinup tattoo on my forearm now. It just got it like a week ago. It's still healing, but I'm very happy with it. Yeah, I love this show. I love the original series. I haven't watched any other Star Trek yet because I kind of want to make it through this journey first. I kind of want to finish this show, and then I have no idea what order I'm going to watch them in, but I definitely want to watch more of the series now too. Like, this has made me more interested in the rest of the world of Star Trek, so I am in it. I really like it. I'm glad that it worked out because I'm totally in. I'm in the world now. I love the characters. I like the episodes. I like the way that they're structured. I love the costuming. I love the music. I love the fights. I'm just all in. I love the original series.
you're so in that now when you meet people who say, I like Star Trek, you can have conversations with them. Like you texted me and you were like, so it turns out the woman who runs the daycare that we take our baby to loves Star Trek. And now we talk about Star Trek.
It was awesome because I had the Sanoderm on my tattoo, so it just looked like mush. And she was like, "Did you get a new tattoo?" And I was like, "I did." And she was like, "Is that a Star Trek tattoo?" And I was like, "Well, sort of. Let me kind of give you like the TLDR on this one." And she's an older Black woman in her 60s, and she was like, "I love Star Trek. I watched it as a kid. I love Uhura. She was my fucking favorite." And so we had this really great conversation about it. And she's watching it. I think she said she's watching Deep Space Nine for the first time right now. She's like,
what a wild ride.
Wow.
Well, she was like, I decided that I didn't want to watch them in the order that they came out. I wanted to watch them chronologically by star date. And so she's going through and watching
woman.
it.
I love this.
I know. And she was like, so I got a whole list and now I'm going through and I'm going by star date, but some of the series overlap. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to do star dates that overlap with each other, but I'm figuring it out. And I was like, I love this. This is the greatest conversation I've ever had in my life. I was so excited about it.
That's so interesting thinking about doing that now, because outside of this podcast and the content of this podcast, you have to stop Discovery at a certain point, and then she's not going to get back to it until watching several other complete series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was funny. She was like, I didn't realize when I started watching Discovery that it was new, and so it was like startling to be like, oh shit, everything is so nice and everything's updated. She's like, and now I'm not watching that anymore. It's like,
yeah.
wild. What a wild journey you're on.
I love that. I love this woman. I love that she's in charge of keeping your baby alive. I think she'll do a great job.
I agree. I completely agree.
Very
Good hands with the
trustworthy.
Trekkie.
Yeah. I put my baby in the hands of a Trekkie for sure.
Absolutely. Totally. 100%.
Stella and I were saying about Dragon Con last year about just like COVID stuff and things like that. Like we felt safest and most comfortable on the Trek track around the other Trekkies. It was,
Yeah.
the best kind of nerds.
Because they were like the hardcore like Trekkie science nerds. Also, there was like this one woman dressed like an Andorian who was handing out she had a giant bottle of hand sanitizer and was just like getting everybody's hands. And we were like, I feel so safe by this Andorian mom.
Just like right there inside the door of any panel, just waiting to pump.
The best.
As a sentence, that was not good, but as a concept for a person, it's a lot better. Okay, so Stell, your opinions on X-Files now.
I mean, I still love it. I have watched a bunch of it on my own that I'm allowed to watch. So I've watched a lot of season 2 now. I have read X-Files books. I have multiple X-Files merch items. I still am reading the fanfic. Both fanfic that is being updated now. There is still like a handful of X-Files writers who are out there, and I really applaud them. They're doing a lot of good stuff. But like old stuff, I am getting more into the like, I think people know this, but I like collect old Star Trek like books and stuff. And so I have a bunch of X-Files books because a friend was cleaning out her storage unit and found all of her old X-Files books as a kid. So now I have like a bunch of them and I'm like, do I get all the X-Files books now too? Yeah, it's funny because I find myself sometimes being like, I want to watch the X-Files and then being like, I can't really watch the X-Files. And so like we've talked about this before. It's like this hell of our own making of like, but I really like this thing. And it's really interesting, especially for me, but I think a little bit for Erin too. Like everybody knows I'm insane. And when I like something, I'm like, this is my life. This is my personality. Here we go. Everybody strap in. I have the Destiel tattoo to prove it. But it's doing the podcast this way. It's like, it almost creates a sense of like, faux reality where you're like almost how people used to watch TV when they had to like wait for it and wait for the new episode and build that anticipation and build that like desire and want. It's like both a hell because I want to watch it and I want to see Skin Man doing all the things in his tidy whities. I know it's only love, it's well, whatever. But it's kind of nice to go slow because then it's like this. It's like building to like a crescendo of like, oh, at some point I'll be able to be like, I've seen it all, but it did take several years. Like what kind of thing in today's modern world where like you can binge everything or things come out, seasons are a lot shorter. Like you kind of don't have this experience watching TV anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting. And I think I would like it anyways. I think I would have binged the X-Files and been like, hell yeah, this rules. But it definitely, I think, is making my fandom a lot deeper. Also, still have a big heart on for Mitch Pileggi, so don't worry about
it. Still hilarious.
It's also very satisfying. I don't know about you. I remember last year, our wrap-up question, it was like, what have you learned about the other person from doing this podcast? And obviously, me and Erin have known each other since I was like 15 and you were like 17 or something, like 16, 18, something ridiculous. Like truly, it's half my life now, at least, which is insane. But a thing that I've come to appreciate by doing this podcast is like, I really love loving something that somebody I love loves. Is that a weird thing to say?
No, I totally get it. That's sort of how I feel about TOS too, is it's like, I feel like, I mean, I've known you for so long and I remember when you got into Star Trek and I feel like if we had watched this at the same time and both gotten into it, sort of like with Battlestar Galactica, we like sort of had our own individual tracks, but it was really close to each other when we both watched it. It was a very different experience than something that like means a lot to you that you've loved for a long time and are really into that I'm just now getting into, and vice versa with the X-Files, like it is a really interesting experience. And I feel like you were saying, because we have this like artificial like stretching out of this process is also like deepening my fandom and my understanding of your fandom too.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, like I said, I've known you for half my life, so I know you very well. You know me very well. Arguably, you know me better than almost everybody else in my life. But it's, for me, I feel like I get to experience this other side of you in a more tangible way. Like, I always knew X-Files was like a big fandom for you, but now it's just, I've known you for so long. It's nice to like know you in a different way. And I feel like friendships and relationships don't usually get to have something like that a lot. And so
it's like a second wind.
Yeah, we made this hell, but we also made this paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a fun, and it's also still fun. Like, I still just have a really good time doing this silly podcast. This silly little podcast. Bobby, what about you? How's your relationship to the X-Files / Star Trek?
Well, I'm still here and I'm still not fired. It's been really interesting engaging in both of these fandoms in much more of an active way. I am not a person who on my own outwardly seeks fandoms. I love what I love, and I usually keep that to myself and the people around me. I don't engage with a lot of communities, but these shows have really pushed me to think about those communities and think about doing that more. I mean, even just on Twitter, we all follow X-Files accounts and Star Trek fan accounts a lot more now. And I'm reading a lot more about these fandoms. You know, Star Trek, because it's kind of having this resurgence with new shows and new content, but X-Files as well, because God, that fandom is still going so strong. People are still discussing this show. There are still daily posts on the official X-Files subreddit. There are still very active fans online and on Twitter. There's still so much content around both of these fandoms to ingest that I am now actively engaging with more. And this is somebody who has been a fan of these things since forever, since I was a kid. So kind of rediscovering them in that way has been really beautiful. Looking at them as a 39/near 40-year-old person without that childhood glee and wonder has also been really interesting, because so many things that I digested as a child because of how sci-fi works and because of how these things works are now tainted with the ideas of horrible people.
Yeah.
And I think I can look at both of these more holistically now and still accept them in a really wonderful way that I haven't been able to with some other things. And then just mirroring kind of what the two of you said just now, I get to work on this with both of you and then engage with the words that both of you say in a really interesting way while editing this show.
We're always in your mind.
And it makes me like you both more as people, because you're entertaining and intelligent and not awful to have to listen to repeating the same words over and over again so I can cut half of an out of a W.
Not awful is really where I'm striving to be at this stage in my life.
Yeah.
It's a sweet spot.
Did you have a favorite moment recording this season? Not necessarily a favorite episode, though that is definitely an okay answer, but like a favorite moment in recording.
Yes, I do. And it is one of the least favorite episodes that we watched. It was the Forget episode.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be that.
Because we both, like all three of us, we just went into the podcast studio and like screamed into the sun for like 35 minutes. And like it was such a we had agreed on a lot, and like there were, I think our views on episodes are very similar a lot of the time, but part of what makes this show fun is like seeing, like we've talked about this a lot this season, where you think an episode is like mid or whatever, and then I watch it and I'm like, I fucking love this. And like like Beyond the Sea, where you were like, I loved this episode, and I was like, I was not expecting that kind of came out of left field. Like that stuff is very exciting. But we were like this is just such an objectively bizarre moment in Star Trek to go in and be able to just like explode our feelings all over the podcast. Like that is why we format this the way that we do, so that we can have this like decompression that we record basically, and to go in and just like absolutely lose our fucking minds about that was really cool. And especially as like I had never seen that. And so to have that be completely fresh and new and be able to like experience that decompression with both of you who both knew that I was going to feel that way was also really cool. And I feel like really encapsulated what we're going for with this show, which I think is part of why it was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah, that is my favorite moment too, but for all of the reasons you said, but specifically it was just like part of this podcast and, you know, the way that I interact with fandom. Like a lot of my fandoms are old or established. Like I like be jumping into a fandom when it's either ending or have ended, because like I'm a weird only child who likes to exist in my own little world, right? And so interacting with Star Trek fandom, especially Star Trek TOS fandom, is a lot of reading historical documents and historical experiences and like what must it have been like to be a, you know, horny 60s housewife and be really into this show. And this episode specifically, I feel like kind of like transported us back into like what it would have been like to be a horny 60s housewife watching this insane episode on Valentine's Day. And like it had this recording that episode and like, you know, it was like hot in the studio and we were like screaming and sweating and having this like it was just a very visceral recording experience that I think comes across in the episode, but I can still like feel it in my body, and it feels like I was like transported through time a little bit, and I was like the dimensions were folding on each other, and I was in the podcast studio, but I was also sitting on the couch at the same time, you know, watching it in the 60s and being like, wow, my brain is melting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. For such a truly bizarre episode of television, it was a really fun episode of the podcast.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So without discussing it ahead of time, the three of us have the exact same answer to this question.
Of course we do.
It is that Valentine's Day scream. The process of recording that episode and then holding on to my notes. And then sometimes y'all read my notes ahead of time and you didn't say anything about it, so I know you hadn't read it. For those of you, and I know it's fewer and fewer as we go on, but for those of you who don't record podcasts, you know, when you go into a recording studio, you need to turn off whatever weather control devices you have, and the heat in the room will rise the number of people that you have. So like a lot of times we'll end these episodes and it'll be a little warm, or, you know, we'll be a little sweaty. This is a fucking sauna after that episode.
Because the more excited we get, the hotter this room gets.
Yeah, our bodies literally heat the room that we're in, and we were just like, not only were we screaming into the sun, it was like 3 little suns exist inside of this podcast studio. We just like emanated all of this heat off of our bodies.
Yeah, it's hard to top that episode. It was really fun and crazy. So we do have some listener questions, listener thoughts. Before we get into that, I did want to shout out one of our listeners and share like a cute anecdote. So everybody knows that I'm the producer of Plan 9 Burlesque. Bobby's a producer of Plan 9 Burlesque. Erin is the head raptor at Plan 9. So we're always there mucking about. And the last show we had a performer on, Chicago drag queen Charity Sheralike. But Charity also listens to our podcast and really, you know, has said a lot of really nice things about it and tweets us all the time. And I had met Charity and done a couple shows with her at like Berlin and stuff. And she was so cute. She came up to me and was like, oh, thank you so much for being in the show. It's really fun because I go listen to you all the time, but, you know, we've not been in the same room a lot. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. You love extracts. Erin's in the corner. And she was like, that's Erin. I was like, yeah, that's Erin. And she was like, oh, okay. I gotta talk to her later. I was like, yeah, you should probably wait till she's done pumping or whatever. You should definitely go talk to her, which I just thought was like a really sweet moment. Not to be like, we're celebrities. Like, we're not. Like, the whole idea of us doing the podcast is, we're friends and want to talk about things that we like together, but we truly do like creating community. That's why we have the Discord and stuff. Like, we have our book club. Like, it's about, like we said, these nerdy things are better when they're shared. And so it's nice to get confronted with that in real life and be like, oh yeah, let's talk about this thing.
Yeah, it was really sweet. When I was leaving that night, she stopped me and she was like, I just wanted to say I really love your podcast and like it's so nice to like get to meet you in person, and I feel like I know you because I listen to you all the time. And I was like, I'm so delighted that we actually got to meet in person. It was so nice cuz like every time I get those tweets about like I'm walking my dog and I'm listening to extracts, I'm just like, oh, this is so delightful. So it was so nice. I was really happy to like actually get to interact face to face and be like, oh, that's right. People listen to this and enjoy it. It's nice to be like whatever. If it was just three nerds screaming in a box together, I would also be fine with that. But it is cool to hear like other people listen and enjoy it too. It's just very fun.
Also, you should follow her online because she is an excellent drag performer. She did a really good Medusa act for our Gods and Goddesses show. So check out Charity Sherlock. This is your shout out. We love you.
Yeah, absolutely. Her Instagram is great. All the makeup looks that she posts are very good.
Yeah. So do you have a question? A couple questions from our good friend John Craig. The first one is, are there any episodes of either show that you've had to include that you really wish that you could have skipped or used a different episode for the topic? Well, I have to use all of them. So the answer to that question is yes for me. I guess for me, I haven't totally used the ones that I absolutely hate. Like, I don't like Miri, obviously, from last season. I'm not a huge fan of Charlie X. So Charlie X, we had a pretty interesting conversation about. Some of my least favorite are coming up in the next two seasons. Like, I hate A Private Little War. I think that's fair. There's Omega Glory is not very good. There's a bunch of them that are just like pretty rough that are coming up. But the nice thing about Star Trek that like we've even said when we've watched like Miri and stuff, like there's always, because it's such, I watched a show and I think Erin and Bobby watched a show primarily for these like characters. There's always at least one or two character moments that's like, okay, this sucked, but here are one or two good character moments. So like, you know, as a completist, I'm sort of happy that I have to make Erin be a completist. But there have definitely been a couple where I've been like, I mean, the whole theme, the unspoken/spoken theme, accidental theme of this whole season was, oh, does this really fit the theme? Yeah. So like, we could have maybe been a little bit better at picking episodes for different topics.
Yeah, there were definitely a few for X-Files that I was like, because I talk about that at the top of the show usually too, where it's like, okay, well, I could have picked this one or I could have picked that, but there's like 300 episodes, and so it's really hard to be like, okay, well, because it's not just what fits the theme, it's also what would be a good discussion, what's a good episode for Stella to watch where she doesn't need like a ton of extra information. A lot of times it's what's an episode that doesn't involve a lot of the syndicate and the like overarching
mythos.
Like the mythos, because that stuff is super confusing, and if you don't watch a lot of that background, it can be like, okay, well, I don't want to spend the whole episode explaining all of this background plot to you, because first of all, it's boring, and second of all, like those episodes aren't always that great, even if they fit the like cinematic theme of the episode of Extracts that we're doing. And so sometimes I find that hard. There are a couple like, it's a good thing no one can see our future episodes, because I have gone through the upcoming seasons ones and changed stuff a lot. Like, there are a lot of times where I go in and I'm like, okay, well, actually, I feel like this one would be better. Or like, I'll watch an episode by myself at home and be like, oh shit, actually, this one would fit this theme a lot better. And like, that can be really difficult where it's like, okay, well, I do love this episode, but also like maybe this would be better for Stella when she's doing like a partial season watch by herself, to be able to like have some good shit to watch that's not just like the mythos thing.
Oh, that's not just like a Chernobyl shit monster.
Right, exactly. And so like there are times where I like purposely don't pick an episode because I want you to be able to have some stuff that like fits into your alone watches too. And so like I feel like there's a lot more calculus that goes into picking out of 11 seasons worth of episodes that can be kind of hard. In hindsight, I'm glad that I picked Millennium for failed spinoff, because you liked it so much, and I'm really glad that you did. But I really went back and forth about that one, because it's not actually a failed spinoff, and so it was like, all right, do I pick something from The Lone Gunman? Where, like I said when we recorded that episode, like I feel like the stuff with The Lone Gunman spinoff, because it comes so late in the series, like you've seen a lot of them, but also it just hits different when you're really attached to those characters in like in season 7 and the way that goes, and especially when the end of their failed spinoff, like, spoiler not spoiler, they literally die, and so, like, do you really want to watch that episode in the middle of season 2 extracts? Like, it would be such a weird episode to end season 2 on, that it felt like, okay, this doesn't feel appropriate to what we're trying to do here. And also part of our theme on extracts is about the characters and about, like, the fandom and the fan fiction that comes from that. And so having to, like, think really critically about, okay, how does this episode fit inside of this? Like, I know it seems like we're just kind of like kicking the shit around, but, like, there is a lot of thought that goes into how we pick these episodes, especially from, again, like, 11 seasons worth, can be really difficult.
Yeah, Erin has it definitely a lot harder because I had to do every episode when we were making the list, me and, like, I would come up with ideas and then I would bounce it off of Bobby and be like, do you think that this theme, because I can fit this theme to this episode, do you think there would be an X-Files episode that would fit this? Or I would text you and be like, hey, is there an episode that would be good for, like, Man versus Machine? And you would be like, yes. Because, like, so I had to, like, work backwards, and then you had to, like, place your pieces on the chessboard that I made. Like, it's actually kind of a complicated little thing that we did. But mine are basically set, and Erin can move stuff around. Though every once in a while we'll make a joke and we'll be like, never mind, we got to do this. Like, Red Hot Pants was obviously a joke. Yeah. Accidental Kink was a joke, but then turned out to be a very fun episode. So they're not set in stone, but they are also kind of set in stone.
Yeah. And there have been times too where we've watched something like the NASA one, for example, where later you were like, oh, maybe I should have picked this one for NASA instead. And they're like the Ghost one too, where, like, we watched one later where it was like, maybe this would have been a better fit for Ghosts. And it's like, yeah, but we've already hit this episode now. And so it's not like we can go back and redo it. And so I feel like that there are those, like, light bulb moments too, where a lot of times what happens when we watch these episodes is we get to the end and it's like, actually, there are a lot of themes between these two, like, rando episodes that we picked that we could have used any one of these as the overarching theme for this too. So I always find that very interesting too, where it's like, there's no way we could have known this going into it because I've only seen one, you've only seen one. And so then at the end, it's like, oh shit, we could have done a whole handful of these, but because we have to fit it into this, like, chessboard that we've created, like, it's hard to see that far into the future about them.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when TOS is my favorite show, but, like, I do full series rewatches every once in a while, but, like, a lot of times when I'm like, oh, I feel like watching Star Trek, I will watch one of 10 episodes, right? Because I'm like, anybody ready for a piece of the action? Piece of the action. Or, like, there are episodes that I know hit differently for me. Like, I'm not out here trying to watch, There Is No Truth in Beauty all the time because, like, it's good, but, like, I'm not watching that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Did I say it wrong? Did I say it right?
There is, in truth, no beauty.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I'll get it wrong right someday. Or I'm not out here watching Requiem for Methuselah screaming about forget.
This is a podcast made of happy accidents. There is so much that happens that lines up thematically that is just happenstance. I mean, loosely because we've tried to connect 2 episodes in theme, but and also there's a lot of overlap in themes in sci-fi and things like that. But some moments where 2 semi-randomly thrown together episodes parallel one another so clearly is kind of fucking astounding.
And then there are episodes where Erin's like, I just want Stella to see this episode and I want her to see it with me. So I don't know, put fire in framed. Which is perfectly acceptable because part of the joy of this is, like, watching them together. Because I assume that that's also part of the calculation. Like, yeah, Stella could watch this by herself, but I also want to see her face when she's like, hey, that's Crowley.
Yes, absolutely.
John Craig also asked, where are those X-Files Star Trek /fics? I'm sure they exist. I've never really tried to look for them. We could write one.
They've got to.
Who would you
somewhere.
even match up?
Well, it would just be like Mulder and Scully are out scullying and Muldering around, and then Mulder's like, oh, look, this artifact, space. And then the Enterprise would be like, so we did a slingshot. What's up? And I don't know. We go from there. Right?
What?
Is that not how we would do this?
What Star Trek TOS character do you think Mulder would get along with best? Do you think Scully would get along with best? Do you think Skinner would get along with best?
Scully and Spock, 100%. And
you don't think that they would clash?
No, I think because they're both very scientific, I think that it would be a loving clash where it's like, I'm all about logic, I'm all about the skepticism of these moments, but we would push each other to, like, the fact that Spock is an alien that exists would push Scully outside of that, and the fact that Scully, like, has weird psychic visions would be something that pushes Spock past his comfort zone, so I feel like they would get along, and also, if Mulder and Kirk are there, they're united against a common enemy / lover, so I feel like that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a 1-for-1. Like, I want to lock Skinner and Bones in a room together and then just see what happens.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Because it's either they like grumble about their like employees / bosses and get drunk together, or they are in a fist fight immediately.
I feel like the obvious answer is that Mulder and Kirk would get along, but I don't actually think that's true.
I don't think that they would.
I think Mulder and Scotty would get along best.
Yeah. Because Kirk has moments of Mulder energy, but they are moments. And for the most part, Kirk is a pretty like regimented, like, this is my crew, this is my ship. When I have to get crazy and wild, I will, but like, that's not my energy all the time. Mm-hmm. Where Mulder is Mulder at all times.
100% of the time. Absolutely. I also feel like, I was going to say, Scotty gets into something and is like, I'm into this thing, and that feels very Mulder, where it's like, let me introduce you to this thing, and Mulder would be like, tell me every fact about this thing that's ever existed. Scotty
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Mulder would be like, how does this work? And Scotty would be like, well, let me tell you. And Mulder would be there asking the prodding questions, and Scotty would be like, this is the best day of my life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think.
The only other thing I would have you both consider then is how freely Bones would give Mulder stimulants and what that relationship would do.
Oh my God.
I want to see Mulder's face when Kirk like flirts with Scully. Because like we know that Kirk like is like married and like whatever, but Kirk is also loves to flirt. Like he can't help it. He's a flirt. I want to see what Mulder does when Kirk flirts with Scully.
He turns into like a 14-year-old boy. He would stand in front of her. He'd be like, don't talk to my Scully.
And he would nag the crap out of her in private. Yeah.
Yes. I know.
You say he would nag the crap out of her?
Having a great time with James Kirk.
Oh, I see you two are looking at the stars together. Some bullshit like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Mulder, we were
and then he'd like make fun
procedure.
of a body part of his. Yeah.
Scully would call him Jim, and Mulder would just like twitch.
Mulder and
then
Spock
so would
both
Spock
be like,
oh yeah, I think we wrote it. We got it. We nailed it.
So there you go. That's where the fic is, John. It was just there. It was right there.
Yep.
You just had to ask.
And last question is for Bobby. What audio edition that Bobby made was the best or weirdest creative choice?
Oh, I don't think that question's for me. I think it's for both of you.
But also I want you to answer. It just had your name in it. I didn't read it in ahead. Man, he's done so many. Honestly, my favorite part of listening to the episodes is getting to the end and seeing what he puts at the back. I'm blanking on them now. Name some of your greatest hits.
Oh, shit. I have an easy answer. The best one is totally, it's me, I'm David Duchovny, I'm hot in the 90s, dick. It still makes me laugh. And part of the reason that it makes me laugh so hard is because John Craig made that video of the Bugs Bunny cartoon of the girl coming out of the forest and singing it. And every once in a while, it'll just pop into my head and I'll just start giggling. I think it is the funniest fucking thing. So that's an easy answer for me.
Like a lot of John Craig and mine's jokes, that is like a reference onion where it's a clip from that episode. And then I was just discussing that Looney Tunes character earlier in the day. Like I had tweeted about it really, really, really late one night of just like, actually kind of my type though. And so putting the audio over that video was hilarious.
Not to harp on this episode because we talk about this episode a lot, but the thing that Bobby did at the end of the immortality episode of the like, oh, but it's just my crazy 3 laughs and a scream.
Yeah,
it was
that
pretty
one was good.
That one was pretty good.
All right. Well, I'm glad people like that. Sometimes the jokes are there and sometimes they're not. I think on episodes where I feel like I'm straining to find something like that, I haven't done them just because things like that, if they're forced, they're not great. However, sometimes editing the episode, I'm like, oh, there it is. That's the joke.
Oh, we fucking.
Yeah. Oh, they fucking was just
That was
there
really good.
because it's something we said out loud while we were watching it. It's Cockrum and the entity talking to one another, and Kirk and Spock and Bones just looking at him like Kirk and Bones looking at him like, this looks fucking sexual. Like it was that exact scene.
Yeah. I mean, it will be hard pressed to top Hortaborg though, too. Hortaborg was really good.
So in my mind, still rattling around, there is the full prog rock album of Hortaborg. There is a 7-minute extended club cut of Aaron's Mulder Dick song. And then we can just re-record that whole Disturbed song with you yelling.
Okay.
So we got an album. We at least got an EP in us somewhere.
Well, yeah.
Will profit? Question mark. Thank you for
What's music licensing like these days? Anyways,
parody law will protect us, right? Oh,
that's bit us in the ass before.
It sure has. Thank you, John Craig, for your thoughtful questions and for your A+ meme skills. We'll get to it at the end, but like our Discord is a fun place, and John Craig brings the very silly handmade niche memes. There are good memes from everybody in there, but John Craig has a very particular set of skills. Basically,
if you see John post something, there is a good chance that it is something that they made themselves.
Yes.
We do have a message from our friend Kat, who also is the person who makes the awesome cross stitches for Plan 9 raffle, and who has made us those really fantastic Christmas ornaments, the one with like the tribbles and Skinner and stuff. She just said, may I send a message of gratitude? Thank you, wonderful folks, for being a beacon of nerdy sci-fi amazingness. I love listening to y'all discuss dark topics like eugenics with levity, which is something I need with the world as it is. Please keep up the good work. Well, that one was wild too, the eugenics episode.
Yes. That was a wild ride.
That was a wild ride. But we're happy to make your life a little bit better, even when the world is falling apart. I can't wait for us to get to the abortion episode. I think that's season 4, though. Let me see. Will you pull it up?
Anything could happen between now and then. Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it is next season. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. And you'll be surprised when you hear next week abortion.
Well, the theme isn't abortion, but it's my episode is about abortion. So we'll get there.
Oh, yeah. And there's nothing in the X-Files dealing with infant mortality or any mishaps with birthing and children at all.
Oh, definitely
Never.
not.
Yeah.
That for sure didn't happen.
But for every episode that is eugenics, there is an accidental kink episode. So, and don't worry, no matter what the theme, we'll always make it horny.
That's the truth.
Weird promise.
They'll make it horny, and then we'll just be like, we watched it with our eyes.
It's text. It's not subtext. It's just text.
It's just text. This one is from Haskell on our Discord. This says, this is going to sound weird. Thanks, COVID. But I really appreciate this podcast explicitly being not a rewatch, watching an order show. I'm fairly certain I have some sort of auditory processing issue, so I have a lot of trouble following a continuing narrative just in my ears as a podcast at work. And I can't really do audiobooks or short stories. This podcast works just as well if I can pay full attention to it, or whether I'm kind of zoning out, barely paying attention and hearing it, but not listening to it. I love your insights on the shows you haven't seen before, especially when you surprise each other with them for whatever reason. I love when you have huge stretches for your matching theme because you just wanted to pick a particular episode. I love when Bobby brings something up that sends you on a tangent during his segment because he brought up something so interesting that's only partially related to the episode or show. So as far as a question, are there any episodes you would never want to subject each other to for this podcast? Obviously, Stella would watch even if Erin said not to watch a particular episode. Less sure about the other way around. But for this podcast, what episode would you never want to talk about in depth on here? So obviously I have to talk about all of them, but I can still pick one. But there might be one that you never want me to experience.
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like if there was that episode, we would have maybe already talked about it.
Yeah, because we did
Yeah.
make themes like the worst and
Yeah, if I had to pick one that I was like, seriously, just don't watch this, it would probably be Gender Bender because it's just truly fucking awful.
And skipping
Not-
it, you miss nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And not because
Yeah.
like the content of the episode is disturbing or anything. It's just a really fucking bad episode. I feel like I don't even remember what they're called. There is an episode early on, it might be season 1, and that's one of the rare ones that has a follow-up later about Bobby, if you remember the name of this one, about the mortician who has sex with the dead bodies, and then he like hires sex workers and puts them in ice baths and then like
fun.
cuts their hair, and then he kidnaps Scully. I feel like it was in season 1, but it might have been season 2.
I think the episode you're talking about is Irresistible. And
Yeah.
that's season 2. Mulder and
Yeah.
Scully investigate a death fetishist who begins kidnapping and killing
Yes.
women to satisfy his obsession. So that's season 2, episode 13.
Yeah, that like I wouldn't tell you not to watch that in general. I had when we made the X-Files watch guide for my friend Sarah, we specifically told her not to watch that because we were like,
Yes.
you are gonna have a bad time. This is not a good episode for you to watch. And he has that character comes back, I want to say in like season 4, maybe even later than that. It's one of the rare ones where he shows up again. But like I don't think that would be a good one for X-Trex because like we were saying earlier, like it's not fun and it's kind of a like disturbing episode in a way that works during like a series watch where you're like, man, some of this is a horror show. Like there are some truly horrifying things that happen on this show, and it just like would not really like we can make light of lots of things on this show, but like a man who's a necrophile who like is murdering sex workers by putting them in like ice baths is just like a step too far. It like doesn't really work. It's like hard to be fun about that. And that character is legitimately creepy, and there's not really anything sci-fi about him. It's just this dude is a fucking creep, and like that would be really hard to fit into the show. That's the only one that really comes to mind. I mean, I've talked a lot about how I don't want to show you the Mythos ones because they're boring and they make no fucking sense. And again, like when you watch a series rewatch, like they fit in watching the thing as a whole. It's a very different experience than here's a random ass alien episode that makes no goddamn sense. Like those ones are really hard to fit in, and that's why I don't, and I've just refused to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple, like obviously there's some episodes for me that like we've watched that I don't love, like the one that we did for This Didn't Age Well or the worst episode, but there's a couple coming up that I don't particularly care for, like the Omega Glory, I think is a really terrible episode, spoiler. It's like this weird American exceptionalism in space. I'm pretty sure it's that one. There's a couple that kind of touch on that. Yeah, there's some that are just like very, sometimes we watch stuff and it's very 60s in a fun way, and sometimes we watch stuff and be like, okay, I see what they were trying to do here. It's still tinted from like the 60s point of view, but for the 60s it does feel pretty progressive. But then there's a couple episodes where you're like, that are weirdly like hoorah America for this like space show that's supposed to be about like utopia and like peace, and like I don't know, that stuff for obvious reasons bums me the fuck out.
Yeah.
But fun for Erin because she gets to watch all the shitty ones.
Yes.
But then there are bad ones that people say are bad, but that are still, I think, fun to watch. Like Spock's Brain, objectively a terrible episode. Like Spock's brain disappears and then you have like weird zombie Spock. Like it's not good at all. But there are some A+ Bones moments that make it really worth it. Or even like the movies.
That's how I feel. We have one coming up. I don't remember if it's season 3 or season 4. Spoiler on the theme. It's I believe like how did this get made, or how?
Yeah, that's the Spock's episode too.
Okay, yeah, that the episode we'll be watching for the X-Files is from season 10 or 11. And spoiler, there's a terrorism that gets done, and Mulder takes a bunch of mushrooms so that he could go into the brain of a comatose Arabic man who's been accused of terrorism, and it is very racist. Like,
Yikes.
in a like a very bizarre way, not in a way that you would anticipate it being racist, but in like a wholly different way of it being racist. But Mulder takes a bunch of mushrooms in it, and so there are these moments where you're like, what the fuck is this? Also, Lauren Ambrose is in it and is excellent, and so like there are pieces of that which are good, and that's part of why I picked it for the episode theme, but it's also like objectively a very bad episode.
Yeah.
Well, we won't get to that until season 4. So
Yeah, I knew that was coming late.
Everyone will forget about that. It'll be fine. It'll be great.
Forget.
And on all of these, of course, as is tradition, we have a fuck, marry, kill. However, this is a fuck, marry, kill I made. And surprise, it's your other podcasts. So your fuck, marry, kill is X-Trex, NYD, and Spooky 30s. Have fun.
Fuck Spooky 30s, marry X-Trex, kill, not your demographic.
100%. That was really easy. Was that supposed to be hard? That was that like a trick question? That was really easy.
Not hard, just entertaining.
Spooky 30s is very fuckable. X-Trex is like comforting. You want to be there, but it's also there for you through the hard times and the hard topics. And now your demographic is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Get it out of here.
Now your demographic is a zombie that limps along behind us that we cannot shed.
Yeah. You could kill it and it would still be there. So
yeah. We have tried to kill it and it's like, no.
No, ma'am.
You thought.
Fucking hilarious. Okay, our next section is something that I just thought of right before we started recording. So let's see how this goes. But welcome to the first annual Exy Awards. These are random awards that I just made up that we're going to give to characters and moments from the season of this show. Our first award goes to Best Villain/Alien.
So is Erin answering for Star Trek and I'm answering for X-Files?
Yeah, you two should both have nominees. Yes.
Yeah. I think my favorite alien was from the one with Spock's parents, the blue guy with the thing.
The Andorian.
The one that as soon as he came on screen, I was like, that one, he did it. That's the one that did
it. The fake Andorian, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I liked them a lot. I liked all the aliens in that episode, but that one especially really appealed to me. And also the angel, the twink. That one was pretty good too.
Yes.
In Charlie X?
The Greek god that descends and is like, ugh. Whatever.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I think that's an Arena.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, the Gord,
yes.
and then it's like, yeah, you guys, whatever, fight, or sure.
Yeah.
Best villain has got to be the guy from Beyond the Sea, I think. He's just so compelling. I can't remember his name, but the Grima Wormtongue.
Yeah, Brad Doran, right? That's his name?
Yeah.
Brad Dorff.
He was so good. But there are several episodes, like, because like Eve has such compelling, interesting villains too. Mm-hmm. But then we got a couple funny villains in the X-Files episodes we watched this season too, like the ghost from How the Ghost Stole Christmas and the shape-shifting lizard monster and Mulder and Scully meet the were-monster. Like those guys are quote unquote villains, but like not really. They're silly, but like as far as scary, definitely Eve and Beyond the Sea. But that's the nice thing about the X-Files, is like you get the silly monster of the week stuff too. Mm-hmm. But then you get like, oh, this is fucked up.
Yes. It's one or the other.
One or the other.
Very little middle ground on that.
Okay, your next award is Most Sexually Tense Moment.
There's so much.
There's so much.
I just watched both of your eyes get so wide.
Oh my God.
I mean, I think mine would have to be the end of Millennium, where they have that moment together and like they're spending the New Year's Eve together.
This could be sexually tense between characters in the show, or sexually tense between you watching the show.
Well, then me and Skinner with his pants off. That's the most sexually tense moment. You all had to experience that in the same room as me.
There's so much. I feel like the whole show is like that.
I mean, a good one for you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like thinking of the accidental kink episode where Kirk and Elon are like in embracing and then the door opens and fucking Spock and Bones are like, bitch.
Yes.
It's pretty good.
I feel like the most sexually tense moment is the forget moment, which is like, which sucks because fuck that moment, but also like, it's just so explicit that it's hard to think of another one that doesn't like it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else because that one is so explicit of the way that they feel about each other.
Yeah, or you could. What about the one where Spock is undercover and has to use sex magic for the first time?
I would describe that as sexually tense.
I know, but it's tense to watch because you're like, ew.
A clown show. Yeah.
The next award is Oddest Character Misstep.
Well, it's interesting for me because like we watch Little Green Men, and that is both Mulder really being Muldery, but also him kind of giving up for a part of it too, right? So he's like, it's over, which is still in character, but he's not like, he has to get like jump started again to get into the X-Files again.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess when Scully is like, I got cancer, I guess I'll get a tattoo and fuck this dude. She was at that bar and was like, hey stranger, do you want to know about my daddy issues?
I feel like part of this is because of the way that this episode was very poorly written, but in the failed spinoff, when Kirk and Spock are like totally incompetent and are just like captured by the NASA police and then are just like, hum-da-dum, I guess we're in mission control. What the fuck are we doing here? Like, that felt odd because it was so wildly out of character. That was very bizarre. That's the one that like immediately jumps to mind.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're harping on this, but like the whole episode of Requiem for Methuselah is literally Kirk acting out of character, but that's also the point.
Right, yeah.
That episode is going to haunt us forever.
Yeah. It like wipes everything else out of my brain. I'm like, all I can think about is this one episode. Yeah, I think that's my answer, is the weird bumbling Spock and Kirk. It just seems so out of character.
Well, I mean, the out of character, we could really phone it in and just be like the body swap episode. Feel like he was acting out of character because he wasn't in his body for both of them.
That's not what I meant.
I know.
You know it.
Not the spirit of the question.
I mean, yeah, when you're talking about Assignment Earth, like, yeah, it was such a blatant cash grab, but you have to count that because Roddenberry wrote it.
Yeah.
And he wrote it for his characters. He's the one that made his characters that fucking dumb in that episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Your next, or Estelle, are you still thinking?
No, I could. There's just like a lot of moments. Go ahead.
Your next award is Hottest Lingering Questions for Season 3. This could come from anywhere. It could come from images that you know of either show that you haven't seen the episode for yet.
Oh, I don't know if this is in season 3, but boy, howdy, do I want to fucking watch Paper Hearts because everybody's always fucking talking about Paper Hearts. And oh my God, I just want to know why everybody's talking about it.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's the end of season 3, so you got some time until we get to it, but it's like...
God, the end of season 3, I'm looking at our choices. That is going to be a banger, and we are going to be emotional wrecks.
Yes, it's so good. I'm very excited about season 3. We've got some really good stuff in there. Yeah, it's... I'm so excited for you to watch Paper Heart. It's just like the most Mulder moments. Like... in the same way that Little Green Men is like, oh my God, Mulder has gone full fucking Mulder in this. And the same way that Mulder goes full Mulder in Duane Barry when he hijacks the gondola and climbs on top of it. Like, Paper Hearts is very much in that same vein. So I'm really excited. And I think by the time we get to it at the end of X-Trek season 3, you're going to be like, what in the fucking world? Who is this maniac?
Okay. Okay.
I'm very excited about that. I feel like the one that stands out to me that I always see images of is the green woman dancing. I don't believe we've gotten to that yet. And Kirk and Spock in like the bondage gear. Which I was like,
Yeah.
is that accidental bondage or accidental kink? And you guys were like, no. That comes later.
So we have seen one Orion dance in the cage, but I think the one you're thinking of, that episode is very fun because there are two like famous scenes of an Orion. So yeah, I know which one you're thinking of, and we are not getting into it until the third. Yeah, we're not getting to that one until season 4. Sorry.
All right.
But I'm pretty sure we're doing bondage next season, right? Yeah, we're getting to the bondage one next season. Don't worry.
Erin also gets to see Space Lincoln as well, right?
Oh, and you get to see Space Lincoln, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I'm pretty sure we get to see. Oh, because see, you're thinking of. I can't tell if you're thinking of the one where Kirk is in bondage, or if you're thinking of the one where they're in the jail together and are like they don't have shirts on. Are you thinking of that one?
Both? Are those not the same thing?
They're different. They're definitely different episodes. Well, you get to see one next season at least. Okay. I think the other one I saved because I tried to save some good ones for season 4 so that it's not just like shit in season 4.
Yeah, I feel like it's harder with Star Trek because we're watching it so jumbled and there's only 3 seasons that I feel like I don't have a ton of questions about what I'm in for.
And there's not
Space
a ton
Lincoln. A little confused about what that means, but I'm ready, I guess.
It's Abe Lincoln in outer space. I don't know what else to
I gathered.
Yeah, and there's not like a bunch of narrative through lines, but we'll get to more narrative through lines and stuff when we get to like more of the movies.
And your final XE Awards for the season 2 wrap up is, of course, the most Duane Barry award, which, of course, this season goes to Duane Barry.
Yeah.
What does that even mean, though? The most Duane Barry award.
So we can talk about this now because we're going to try to give it out next year. It is the most batshit insane character that ends up being it's just which character in this season was the most like Duane Barry.
Okay, but who's the most Duane Barry for Star Trek this season?
Who is a completely bonkers ass character who is deeply impactful, only there for a little time, and is also kind of slightly endearing.
Mud, right?
Khan? Yeah, probably Mud. Mud or Khan, but Khan's like got it together. But Mud, yeah.
I would think it's Mud.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely Mud. Obsessed with themselves, considers themselves the main character, even though they are definitely a side character, completely ruins everybody's lives that they come into contact with. Like, it's definitely Mud.
Definitely Mud. Gotta be Mud.
Gotta be Mud.
So, in closing, we do have this casual fan questionnaire that we have been using for the whole season. I think we should do it one more time.
Yes.
As a casual fan, would you recommend this series to a newbie?
Yes. Duh. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
100. We both said at the beginning, we love them. I think X-Files is a little harder to watch out of order, so you might want to watch that more chronologically. But you can also watch it crazy, and you'll still have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If you have somebody pulling out the Mythos episodes for you, so you don't have to watch them, probably.
Yes, definitely. Watching the Mythos ones out of order is like, what the fuck is going on here?
We kind of talked about this. What is a scene or moment from the season that you won't forget? What is a scene or moment that we won't forget that isn't in Requiem for Methuselah? That is the thing.
Was this the season with the caftan lady?
No, that was last season.
All right. Both of the caftan ladies were last season? Really?
Oh, no. I guess are you talking about the one that Spock flirts with? The commander? The Romulan commander?
No, the I want to be the kept woman one. Was that?
Yeah, both of the caftan ladies are last season. Sorry.
That's disappointing. It just sticks so clearly in my mind. The caftans were so beautiful.
Yeah, the caftans are bitchin'. We do get the really good caftan that Uhura wears in the Tholian Web, where Kirk is kind of a ghost and she's in her chamber and she's got her bitchin' caftan on. And then she's like, Captain, somebody believe me, I saw him. Kirk, Uhura, Bessie, supremacy. I guess probably the part where the people's bodies were in rocks. That was pretty rough for me.
Yeah, that was like a character-defining moment for you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I discovered something about myself that I do not like this.
Defo that.
I think the thing that might stick with me the most is Spock's parents and his relationship with his parents and the way that everyone else on the crew reacts to his parents. Like that, I really enjoyed that. And also, weirdly, having seen Spock's parents in like other contexts, like working backwards to that episode was like a really weird way to experience that. But I feel like because I already have the context for how important his dad is, it like made me click in more with them too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because you saw Star Trek 4 before you saw Journey to Babel.
Mm-hmm. And I saw the animated series episode before I saw that right. too. So, yeah. I think that's probably it for me.
That makes sense. That's a good one. Who are you shipping?
I mean, there's the obvious. Obviously, I want the triumvirate. I want Kirk and Spock. I want Kirk and McCoy. But my favorite rare pair, I love Scotty and Spock. I think that they're fantastic together. I think it's adorable.
So funny. I love your rare pair. Look, I know this is breaking everybody's heart, but I basically only read Skinner and Scully fic. I'll throw in Mulder every once in a while. And I understand and I respect that Endgame is Mulder and Scully. And I get that when I watch it in chronological order, I probably will have different feelings. But like, I'm horny for Mitch Pileggi. So
there's nothing you can do about that.
There's literally nothing I can do about it.
Incurable.
Yeah. And I've read Mulder Skinner fic and it's good. But like, the people who write Skinner Scully fic are very good. I like... They're good, my friends. Is this season of X-Tracks a fuck, fight, or a flop?
This is a fuck. Duh, obviously. Our adherence to the theme, fine, but the rest of it was a fuck.
The conversations and the camaraderie were a fuck.
Yes, definitely.
What about you, Bobby? You got any final thoughts before we blast this podcast into space? I don't know.
I have one question, considering that was, the season 2 was your casual fan questionnaire. What kind of fans will you be in season 3 of this show?
Intermediate fans.
I think we can just be fans. I think we're just fans now. And then season 4 will be super fans.
Yeah, I like that. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for listening to season 2. We'll be back on Labor Day with season 3, hopefully, if our schedules
we'll make it work.
We'll make it work.
You can find us on the internet. You can follow the show podcast at NYD Productions on Twitter and interact with us using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
And you can find me on Twitter at Haberdasher9K.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with thoughts and hopes for season 3.
And if you want more special behind-the-scenes action, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions, where you can get extra podcasts, outtakes, access to our very hopping company Discord, and so much more.
For only $1.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you in a couple months for season 3. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.